Hello, everyone. This is Mehdi. You're listening to All Things Last Mile, a podcast covering the latest news and trends in the logistics industry with a particular focus on last mile delivery. This podcast is powered by Flashbox, a Canadian technology company providing delivery services to businesses of all sizes. This is the third episode of All Things Last Mile. We have as our guest today Craig from Wizmo. He's the CEO and co-founder. Wizmo has been a very close partner to Flashbox from the early days. They're helping, their amazing solution is basically helping various retailers ship better, faster, and with much more visibility across the entire, basically, I would say, supply chain and up to basically the last mile covered partially at this stage, at least in GTA and now in Vancouver by Flashbox. I'll let Craig introduce himself and the company, and then we'll start discussing about many topics that are currently part of the updates and news that we can provide you this week.
Yeah, thanks, Mehdi. Appreciate being on, and I like that I'm one of the first guests on here. So, I've been on a few podcasts, and usually I'll check out previous podcasts to get an idea of structure. But I think we're early enough on here that we can paint our own way here and kind of do what we want. But I did enjoy the other episodes that you had up. So, yeah, thanks for having me on. So Wizmo, and it actually stands for Where Is My Order? But we turn the S into a Z or a Z if you're in Canada. And, and I was initially working at UPS before we started this company. And there was a bit of an issue where the folks that we were dealing with, and I was in sales, but they were trying to ship items to the United States from Canada, and it was costing them $20 or $21 with Canada Post for a tracked 10-day item. And with UPS, even with an 85% discount, you were getting $13, $15. And these are small, lightweight items they were trying to sell online that were only 15 or 20 bucks. So I thought, how is e-commerce going to actually work from Canada? This doesn't seem right. At the same time, you had folks with a UPS account manager, a FedEx account manager, and then maybe international, they had a DHL guy and like a local guy. Each of them had minimum spend requirements on their contracts. And at that time, this is like 2015, they had different shipping systems as well for getting orders out the door. And often it was different computers. So they'd have like one computer with software loaded on it for one and the other. And we just thought like, this is kind of stupid. Like why doesn't one person come, with great buying power, and expose the shippers to the fastest, least expensive way of shipping, and also provide some of the, more modern types of shipping, like same day type stuff that the postal and the common carriers were years behind. It's taken them years and they're still not there, right? So yeah, the concept worked out well. We started with Canada to US shipments by taking advantage of something called Section 321, but it allows you to just bring packages over the border that are under $800. So Obama opened that up to $800 in value. So basically all e-commerce items from Canada can flow into the US duty and tax free in a sense. So we started basically driving packages from Canada into the United States at nighttime, so that you would get a USPS level delivery. And they were shipping by the ounce, not the pound. So that was an advantage for Canadians who are used to paying like by the kilogram in some cases. And it was faster. It was like a 3-day air product or a 2-day air product for $3 or $4. So there was a postal arbitrage, at the time. That's become more competitive and sort of closed, but we now represent 6% of all the Section 321 shipments from Canada to the US by ground. So we've really grown in that space, and that's where we came from. We have a lot of options now. It's not just economy or express, but all sorts of options. We've moved into domestic Canada now, but never does Wizmo participate in the actual final mile delivery. I'll maybe just share my screen quickly, but we're what you'd call a first mile and a middle mile carrier. This is our website.
When you say you're a first mile, meaning you have your own trucks that handle the first mile for some of your merchants?
Yeah, so you've got this nice little chart here that shows sort of the package journey. That's why I wanted to, bring the site up. But yeah, the first mile, we do have our own 5-ton trucks that are usually picking up skid level, like larger shippers that we were working with, 200 or more shipments a day. And we're bringing it to our different hubs that are sortation centers. And you can just think of it as a router where it's like bing, 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 and it's going out to all of our partners. Sometimes we drive it into the US, sometimes we fly it inter Canada. And we manage an air network with air cans and whatnot between our facilities. But the final mile is always partners. We really believe in the ecosystem, so we were excited about working with Flashbox because you're very just sort of up and coming, fresh, new, modern carrier with good technology. So our customers are now able to get something that they're just not going to get with a UPS or FedEx for a number of years, that you guys have to offer. So that's the strength of our product, is really the strength of the ecosystem and the repackaging of other people's products. So we're managing sort of the sales process, the pickup, the invoicing, sortation, and just the general account management. And then the final mile work is done with a network. So yeah, that's a long-winded explanation of what we're up to. Sorry to hog it.
No, it's great. I mean, one of the objectives of the podcast is really to help. I mean, you'd be surprised the amount of people generally involved in the overall logistics industry who don't really know how everything is happening in the various section corners. Whether it's from a first mile, mid mile sorting, fulfillment, or last mile spaces. Now, you said that when you were at UPS, it was in, I guess, still up to 2015, right?
Yeah. So it was, let's see, it was technically, our company was technically incorporated in 2015, but we didn't really have revenue. We were trying to build a software product using credit card money and recreate basically ShipStation, and we realized that was a bad idea after a while because it's very hard to do. You're
Well,
like a
that's a really
billion-dollar
good
company.
point, by the way. How do you differentiate? Because I think one of the murkiest areas of this still very, very, very early stage industry, in my opinion. I mean, you just said it, right? Up to 2015, which was probably 20 years after the birth of e-commerce, you were facing an incredible situation where you had so many different software solutions, so many different problems to tackle, no compatibility between the various pieces of software that was used, whether by the carriers, by the various warehouse management systems, the last mile carriers. I mean, it's still, I
Yeah.
think, 80-90% a mess, which is
So
why.
So yeah, so ShipStation is a lot of people will know it, many might not, but at the core of it, it's a multi-carrier platform for printing shipping labels. And as strange as it sounds, that didn't really exist in in 2015. To the point that I remember I had an account that I was working on that needed they needed to work with us at UPS, but also some other people. And so I found on the internet, just Googling ShipStation in like 2015. And at the time it was so small that I was talking to their CTO and like the founding team. It was like 10 people working there or something at the time. And I said, hey, like I'm UPS Canada. Do you have our API loaded in? And they said yes. And they were able to do things that UPS wasn't able to do with our labels in terms of like calling services that UPS Canada didn't even realize were on their API because they weren't as familiar with it as these guys for whatever reason. And it was interesting. Like the people at UPS were like, what is this? Like you're saying you can print labels that aren't just UPS labels. And I said, yeah, we really should like get on this and get involved in a partnership. And they didn't do it. There's a bit of a bureaucracy there, right? You'd have to shout pretty loud to get anything done. But I was known as not the executive team, but top performing sales guy, and I hiked up the chain, but it never just really went anywhere. And then you see later on down the road that it's like an absolutely massive thing, and now they're reselling discounts directly, cutting out having salespeople at UPS by just selling discounts on ShipStation.
Absolutely.
So it's evolved extremely rapidly.
And there's been a number of platforms. I guess a number is another statement. There's been a massive amount of copycat models of ShipStation who popped left, right, and center, which makes basically leads me to my next point. So I'm a simple, small to medium sized retailer looking to ship my parcels daily to, let's not even make it complicated, to various points in Canada. Who should I go to, right? Who should I speak to? How should I get the best potential service amongst the massive universe of potential counterparts that I could be dealing with, starting from entities like ShipStation, people like yourself, Wizmo. Some of them come to us, they're like, Flashbox, can you help us? Of course, all the existing brand names from FedEx to UPS to Purelator and so on and so forth. So I guess, what would you um, say to someone getting started with their e-commerce platform? Because this is of course a mega trend, massive trend that has accelerated to a large extent during the COVID lockdowns, and basically people
Mhm.
realizing there's now an opportunity to get on with whatever they were thinking of selling. So I guess, how do they navigate? How should one navigate this universe of potential partners to work with to find the best, basically, interface to ship first Canada wide, right, and then
Yeah.
with other locations?
Well, I think the good news is there's so many options that they have many to choose from. Um, so if you're small and you're doing the fulfillment yourself, which most are, I think probably of 80-90% of Shopify stores are so small that they're actually probably just doing their own fulfillment and pick and pack, and that's why you see they have Shopify discounts already installed for printing labels for say Canada Post or some of the common carriers, and they advertise saying, oh, this is the lowest price in Canada, or the US or whatever, best you can get. I mean, the truth is it's really just not, but it's better than what you would pay at retail, because
Mhm.
some of the common carriers at retail, you're paying as much as 3 or 3.5 times what someone who has a good discount is paying. So you're basically getting absolutely ripped. Like the discounts for the common carriers when I was at UPS, it was like you'd set them up with like an 87% discount, right? It's like, who the hell's paying who's paying published rates? Um, so, anyways, I think you'd start there. You build your volume. You use probably Canada Post to get going as your volume accelerates. There's a bunch of options now where you can drop packages off um, in Canada, and I know in the US too, where there's this model where you go and you drop off at in Canada we have Chit Chats and Stallion Express that are two companies that do that, and I mean they're interesting partners in the ecosystem too. These little hubs that are servicing like the phytoplankton of the sea in a certain sense. The 80% of the retailers that represent probably 20% of the package volume. Um, but it's still a lot. And, they've got great options because they're physically handling the packages. They can get a better discount than what you'd ever get from Shopify just printing out a label.
Right.
Yeah.
So when would they come to someone like you?
Then when you get into the big leagues, no, we're happy to talk to people at different stages, and oftentimes they're too small for our model now. Initially, we would take anything. I take half a package initially, but now it's like a 200 minimum because we like people who need 5 pickups a week, and that we can establish a static, pickup route with them.
That's daily, right? We're talking
Yeah,
daily, right?
daily, like large daily shippers, so like large retailers, as well as third-party logistics companies and other logistics companies. Then they would come to us probably once they've been around the block a little bit and they have tried 3 or 4 options and they're looking for like a more of a lead logistics provider.
Hmm. Yeah. And therefore, so from what you're saying is that there's no option for them to, in a way, get started with a counterpart and then grow up with them, right? They need to basically shop around for the basic solutions initially, whether it's Canada Post or, as you mentioned correctly, some of the uh, drop-off location type of providers, Penguin or Chitchats, and these sort of
Mm.
platforms. Then, when they grow up a little bit, go to entities that can help them really navigate the universe of potential counterparts they have. One thing that, of course, comes up a lot in our conversations with merchants is this repeated worry, or rather annoyance, of having to deal with different carriers, right? That's really a topic we keep seeing and hearing all the time. So basically, to put it in context, because it's quite interesting, I think, for everyone. So we go, let's say now to a carrier, to a merchant, sorry, they say, okay, great, I have enough volume to justify basically leveraging your great same day model in GTA. But I have 80% of my volume going to other locations in Canada. We're not even talking about international shipments. So some of them will go ahead and switch out a portion with Flashbox or any of the local carriers. The other 80% going to one of their preferred partners to get that discount. I'm trying to get to that discount conversation here. Now, there's a funny development, because as we are expanding our reach, right, to new cities, these people, of course, they want to leverage and piggyback on our expansion to get that fast and affordable and reliable whatever delivery we're getting to their end customers. But then, as they gradually switch their volume to people like Flashbox, they lose that negotiating power, right? Negotiation power with the carriers that they've been working with. And then there's a dilemma for them. When basically should they stop providing volume to new carriers? And the next point in the conversation usually is, okay, now that you can handle 3-4 cities, just why don't you take my entire volume and handle it for me? Because otherwise I lose my discount, right? And
Yeah, although I think that whole you're going to lose your discount is a bit of a farce. And having been in that industry as a salesperson for UPS and knowing all the FedEx guys and whatever, and DHL guys and whatnot, they're so desperate for packages that they're going to still give you the discount you've been given if you kick and scream a little bit. Just tell them you're going to be moving if that's the case, and they go, "Oh, okay, no tears." Like I find that people are so fearful of it. We don't do any tiers. I think tiers make no sense because you're punishing people when they're not having a good month or a good week. Like you'd see the tiers spike up, you'd have a 30% increase in your transportation costs when you're having a slow month. Like how does that make any sense? So I think that's a bit of a thing where if you push back on your rep at one of the common carriers, they're going to budge. Like they just want volume so bad. You have no idea, especially the volume from the small retailers, because there's actually margin in it. Like they're really big clients, they hardly make any money off. They just fill the truck, and then they're actually making a lot of money off the small guys. So they want to deal with you, even if you're giving them less packages. But yeah, you're saying that now they're wanting you to take some of their other packages, and I think that's where Wizmo's been able to help, at least you guys initially, is to create a national network. Is that you can have your product airlifted by us at the same kind of cost that a FedEx or a UPS get with the airlines, and then you can bring together a national product for them. And I would just siphon off, and not worry too much about what the common carriers are going to do.
Absolutely. Now, the other conversation, or rather, let's look a bit ahead now. And I'd be interested to hear, as an industry specialist this time, for more the overall collaboration potential or other integration, and what really you think is the road ahead in this industry, made up of so many different players at each layer, right? Whether you look at it from a TMS angle, whether you look at it from the local carriers, whether they do same day, next day. Some of them won't only do last mile. Some of them will also do first mile. So my question is, how do you see the industry evolving in light of the overall ecosystem? I think in terms of number of parcels being processed, still being dominated to the absolute majority, 99% plus, by at least let's take the US as an example. It's UPS, FedEx, and Amazon, right? That basically are, and we're talking here parcel, the parcel industry, the parcel market.
Yeah.
What do you think will happen to displace? Is it possible to displace these guys? And if so, how? And how do you see the market basically moving forward?
Yeah, the parcel and small package industry. Yeah, I think I'd seen some stats where it's something like there's like 220 billion packages shipped in a year. Maybe I can just pull it up while I'm on here, but
I think
it's
US
very,
market, 30 billion.
or yeah, maybe I added a digit on there, but it's very big, and it's sort of oligopolistic with the UPSs and the FedExes. Um, but you can see that there's weakness there because you watch how quickly Amazon has moved in and like just punched a hole in it. And uh, you know, maybe you have stats that I don't, but I think Amazon in the next year or two is going to be as large or larger than FedEx and UPS added together in terms of certain types of assets they have, in terms of like airplanes or in terms of delivery trucks. So I don't think that they have that much of a power hold on the market as they might think or as investors might think, because shipping is extremely sort of like price elastic, where there's a lot of demand for it when it's more inexpensive, and price is a huge variable, a huge driver. So you've got these guys who have, you know, asset-based organizations. They're paying out dividend structures to investors. They have middle management all over the place. They're having to invest in new countries all the time and sap money from their key countries for it. I mean, it is not the path of least resistance for a package to get delivered. It's going to be too expensive for them to compete. I think, you know, folks like you are going to be like an army of 10,000 sort of thing, like an ecosystem that takes it over. If you look at the trucking markets, this is what happened in the trucking industry. I believe 88 out of 10 trucks that will deliver a pallet are owned by a fleet of under 10 trucks. So it's it's a similar, it's an army of, it's an ecosystem. That's not the case right now. It's dominated by postal and courier, but it will change. I think it will completely flip in the next 10 years to being going probably like 10% right now mix of private couriers to being something like 80 or 90 in like a 10-year period. I think it's I think it's going to really change. And
Definitely.
Amazon's the reason. Amazon created all these vendors, you know, the guys who aren't wearing brown shorts or purple shirt that are delivering packages.
Yeah.
They created the ecosystem for this, and a lot of those guys don't want Amazon as their only client. So now they've run out and established a delivery business with other people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, this is of course, you know, one of the main elements of my pitch to prospective investors, saying that it's just beyond belief that there's an industry as big as, you know, the logistics industry, still dominated by, you know, I don't know, let's call them dinosaurs, uh, that basically have absolutely no intention of really innovating, and the market really is moving fast still, you know, with the e-commerce figure, let's say, even with the correction happening right now, you know, we everyone thought that the trend in terms of increased e-commerce percentage overall in the US as percentage of retail will accelerate. But let's say we just go back to the normal trend, within the next 10 years, you know, we'll hit numbers like in the UK, so 30% of anything bought will be purchased online. So there's another basically doubling supposed to happen in less than 10 years. And, you know, whoever is better positioned to offer the best service will win. You know, because I know you also work a little bit on the fulfillment side, um, or maybe you can discuss a little bit how you look at the fulfillment side of things. But, you know, there are a lot of players as well approaching this industry through the fulfillment angle, right? So ShipBob and various players who come in and, you know, try to really dominate the fulfillment aspect of things, whether it's their own assets or a network that they develop, and then are, I know, you know, talking to various individuals in the industry, trying to see if they could kind of create a vertical integration, so control again the inbound, see if they can do some of the deliveries themselves. It's always the same conversation, right? So how do you see that side of the industry developing?
Yeah, so I think we're down to like having two smaller fulfillment accounts. And their legacy, they're sort of like, we took it on in the early days when you really need revenue, and it usually came from people who were shippers who needed a solution. In a couple cases, they got booted out of proper 3PLs because they didn't have labeling conventions and whatnot, and they needed help, and we helped them. And it's been very hard to pivot away from having those, you know, few accounts. But eventually, we probably plan to not have any of those. If you look on our website, we don't have fulfillment, and we are actively pretty serious about saying that we're not in that we really are not in that business because it affects our ability to sell to fulfillment centers, and we really want them as a client type, and we don't think that it's the right move to do full vertical integration entirely yourself of both building assets and car assets and all that stuff. I know there is that vertical integration play out there, but we are really a believer that there's an ecosystem that exists, and for us, we're specialists in transport of packages. So our website says we move packages. That's like a motto or something. Um, we just do smaller, lighter weight packages and parcels, and yes, there's synergies between having warehousing and having transportation, no doubt. But if someone can be even a few percent better than you at something in this business, they'll win that portion of the business because it runs off of like 5% margin, 6-7% margin. So my view is that it'll go the path of least resistance, the path of lowest cost, and that's going to be a transportation specialist who is super serious about networks, and not someone who's running warehousing, because warehousing is super hard actually to do just on its own. So I don't see it being the right play. But yeah, there's been money, like Gold Bolt. Obviously they raised a lot of money and made some headlines, and they're going for the vertically integrated play. But to me, it just seems too much like the UPS play. It's like you want to own everything yourself. Okay, that's expensive and slow moving strategy, I would think. But we're bootstrapped, right? We haven't taken investor money, and so the power of the ecosystem is really strong. I mean, we're riding the ecosystem wave. We're not trying to be vertically integrated.
That's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up. I mean, a lot of people maybe listening to us, this industry, or anyway, in any industry, any sector, generally in the that has to do something with software will well. Although these days less so. I mean, you don't see those TechCrunch updates about hundreds of millions of dollars being raised and that being advertised as a success by itself. But why did you choose not to take money from investors? Surely, I mean, the way the business is now progressing and growing, you've been approached, particularly in the past boom cycle,
Yeah.
where logistics was the hottest thing, or at least one of the hottest things in town. Why didn't you go for that money and accelerate your expansion?
We've always been pretty heads down operators, and that's one of the reasons we just had success operating it, and have had to be cash flow positive since day one. But I think there is the opportunity to do it now because we've been reached out to a lot of times, and I'm not saying we never will, but one of my theses on this is that there is so much change coming to this industry that it's actually an advantage to keep your gunpowder dry, so to speak. If you have a thesis about how things are going to work in this market right now, and you throw tens or hundreds of millions of dollars at it, I think there's a good chance it doesn't go well, because there's all these confounding variables. Like, we don't even have the autonomous deliveries happening yet in the middle mile or the last mile with the robotics and whatnot. Once that hits, it's probably going to change everything and all the dynamics in the industry. So for me to say, let's say I have the play that I'm going to be vertically integrated, or that I'm going to be an ecosystem player, and I put a stake in it and throw a whole bunch of money at that bet, it's probably going to be wrong within 5 years. It's quite unpredictable what's going on here. Like, I don't think even for us, we knew what business we would be in when we started. It was sort of that internal iteration, continuous improvement, listening to customers. That's a pretty safe way to build. And if you look at a lot of the large logistics companies, they're family owned, they're bootstrapped, and they never raised money, and they kind of through the decades just did what they needed to do in order to stay relevant and grow. And when you see those acquisitions that come across your email or whatever about so and so got sold to so and so, I always look it up and I say, okay, like, where did this company come from? What's their origin? Did they raise money? Most of them have never raised money. They're all like family legacy logistics empires that were built on continuous improvement and iteration. So if you go by, hey, like here are all the successful people who sold their businesses and 80-90% of them are bootstrapped, maybe there's a reason that's the case, right? So I don't know if it's actually a smart idea to do right now.
Yeah. Um, of course, I mean the more and also a matter of control in this industry where indeed a lot of things are supposed to change. Just to close off the discussion today, I mean you already alluded to one of the changes happening in industry in the shape of well, some sort of automation potentially. Maybe mid-mile, indeed, I would tend to agree with you, would be the easiest because it's a repeated pattern where you go from one warehouse type of building to another without having to interact or deal with too many bothering humans. But uh, what would be in your mind, if you can share the changes or upcoming trends that will influence this industry? Of course, let's keep it to our area or
Yeah.
geography. But what are the big changes you see coming in the next, let's call it 3 to 5 years?
I think you'll start to see in some of the closed loop ecosystems that are like Walmarts and whatnot that they're able to do that autonomous middle mile stuff. It'll be harder for open supply chains to do that, but it will eventually come. And you see Tesla's semi truck is really cool, and it hasn't come out yet, but maybe it finally will. And when it does, it's going to change absolutely everything. I mean, the basic economics, the speed that things move at, like you won't need team drivers. The thing just goes on its own forever, charges itself. Um, I think that the middle mile gets faster by ground and autonomous. You're just going to see package times fall and costs fall. The cost of delivering a package, I think, is going to fall to almost zero over time. It's a deflationary environment, right? With technology, and so those are two things I think are important to keep in mind.
Yeah, and of course, we'll take away one of the biggest challenges in the industry, i.e., the human factor, right? And finding people to actually do the driving from place to place. Just on this topic, I guess some of the models already that could be implemented, and here at Flashbox, we were actually discussing the first podcast we had with this gentleman who runs a company called Tiny Mile. Their robots are teleoperated, right? Meaning they are autonomous to a certain degree, but of course there's a human sitting somewhere on this planet monitoring the robot or robots in that case, right? They're trying to basically have one human handle more and more of these delivery robots. They're sidewalk robots, but this can be replicated for other
Yeah,
formats. And I think for that specific niche or vertical, this is already applicable for some specific
yeah,
cases, right? Where you have repeat kind of patterns. Maybe for our first mile, where we could have similar scenarios where we go every day to the same location with the same pattern, and this could be handled without a human being involved, which again for
yeah.
us is
Well, the final mile is tough though. You got to know there's sometimes stairs you have to go up, or like these things that aren't the same at everyone's house, and everyone's driveway is a little bit different. Maybe there's a dog attacking the thing, or you need to get it up to put it through a mail slot or whatever. It's this heterogeneous environment that I don't actually know how robots are going to do that. You'd almost have to set up a target where you're like, hey, when the robot comes in, put my package on this thing or in this box. So I think there has to be some kind of repository that you assign, like on your property for it or something like that, because humans are good at getting up the stairs around the corner, putting it behind a bush to hide it. Like there's a lot of value add that humans for final mile still bring. It's going to be
yeah.
a while.
Here's a great business idea, right? I mean, there's a lot of infrastructure to be built at building or house level to accept parcels from some sort of automated entity. Anyway, thank you so much, Craig, for your time today. From the conversation, I mean, now it's becoming a pattern, right? We see that the industry is one of the largest in the world. Of course, most people know this, but it's also one that has been dominated by the exact same players anywhere you go, whether it's in the US or Europe or Asia. And this is, of course, an anomaly compared to other industries that have seen a lot of upheaval and changes with new players coming in. I think the nature of the industry having a lot of infrastructure needs has allowed the incumbents to preserve the upper hand in a lot of the various niches of the overall industry. But yeah, with new technology and new expectations from customers, as we are seeing it with people we work with, both you and I, people are completely ready to switch out of existing players and try out newcomers. So I think it's a good.
Exciting time. I love the industry just like you do. It was fun nerding out with you a little bit today, and hopefully some other logistics nerds tune in too and comment or reach out. I'm social and love networking, connecting with others in the industry. So please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Craig, and we'll be in touch soon. Thank you.
Okay.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you everyone for listening to this episode. Don't forget to sign up to our newsletter, All Things Last Mile, and see you all during the next episode.